My name is Sarah Hotchkiss. For those of you I haven't met, looks like kind of a blend. I own Catalyst Wellness Coaching downtown, primarily integrative nutrition and mental health business. I also work part-time at the doctor's office on the south side, down from the job center, doing both nutrition and mental health. But I'm about 3 doors down from the Cheesecake Factory in Studio 107, or not the Cheesecake Factory, 808 Cheesecake, downtown. We don't have one of those. And I'll be across from what's supposed to be the Children's Museum in the old bank next year in 2025. So just kind of right in the heart of downtown there.
Is that where Inspired Spaces used to be? Or
yes, I'm right above Betsy. Yeah, right. Yep, right above Betsy. Yep. And so there's a handful of us kind of upstairs doing different things. But so today we're going to talk a little bit about sleep and the pieces that kind of go along with that. And again, I'm going to spend most of my time, we'll talk about supplements, but really not a ton. More just about like if you're having difficulty sleeping, habits and things that you can do to do that. Now, most of us, and I bet you over half of what I'm going to say today, you've heard before. And I've been to presentations too where I'm like, yeah, but then I don't do it. And so a lot of times the things that you hear, like you have to actually go and implement it. So as I'm talking today, by the end of the presentation, see if you can think of 3 things, because I'm going to give you at least 20, that you think you could go home and implement, let's say starting tomorrow. So 3, and then it won't be so overwhelming. Because maybe some of these things you already do. And then we'll do some questions around 1:15 or so. But maybe some of these things already do. And so maybe maybe what you used to do 10 years ago worked, and now all of a sudden it doesn't. We'll talk about that too. Of course, that's where like hormones and some other stuff come into play. So, okay, has anybody ever heard of bedtime procrastination? I hear this more from women than men, probably 10 times more. Do you know what that is?
I invented it.
Yeah, right. Linda and I are both good at it. Actually, we talked about that because I said I'm more of a night owl, but am I a night owl because I just don't want to go to bed? Like, I think that's a piece of it. So bedtime procrastination is when you say, I'm going to go to bed at 10 o'clock and then you don't, for whatever reason. Oh, I'm just going to watch a movie. For me, it's usually like, I'm just going to get one more thing done, which of course that keeps me more awake. Like, I just get this one more thing done. Like, and I have this, ongoing list of things, I'm sure you all do, of all these things you have to do. So I'm like, I'm just going to get this one more thing done. Often what I hear is, and I feel this too, the last hour of the night is probably the only time in my sort of day where it's quiet. Everyone else has gone to bed, and it's like, oh my gosh, I could just sit and like watch a movie, Netflix, scroll my phone, do nothing, read a book. Like, it's the only time that I could like spend by myself. If you tend to put your energy into the mornings, a lot of people that get up earlier in the morning will say the same thing. It doesn't matter if you do it at night or in the morning, but they're doing it at 5 a.m. I'm not doing that at 5 a.m. I'm doing it at like 11, right? From like 11 to 12, I might do that. And they're relaxing activities and things. But sometimes I'm really tired and then I go to bed, and other times I just feel like I don't want to go to bed because I have so many things I want to do, or this doesn't make any sense, but I want to relax, so I don't want to sleep. But I want to relax awake. So I think when you're busy and balancing lots of things, sometimes you want a little extra like me time. And so it's hard to find time to like carve it out. So that's what bedtime procrastination is. So like, that if you haven't heard the term, that's what I'm going to call it, is bedtime procrastination. So so a lot of times it's taking back your free time at night and and it could be in the morning too, but that's bedtime procrastination. If it's, if you are an hour late to work every day, then it's probably morning procrastination because you were hanging out doing something. Don't do that. But so your body has its own internal clock that manages everything from your hunger cues, which we'll talk about hunger and sleep a little bit today too. If you are not sleeping well, you're going to be craving sugar and more food overall because your system's going to be wonky. And so your internal clock manages your energy levels, your hunger cues, when you feel awake, when you feel sleepy. And so the idea is to try to, in a 24-hour cycle, try to regulate that as much as you can. those women who are still having cycles in this room, that can vary follicular ovulation and luteal cycle a little bit too. You might find that you may need more sleep at different parts in your cycle. And then ideally we should try to like honor that as much as you can. Sometimes that's hard to do too. And so basically that's what we call like a circadian rhythm. When I do saliva tests for cortisol with people, we are looking for a higher cortisol awakening response in the morning. It's called CARS, cortisol awakening response system. That's what it's called, CARS. We are looking for a higher spike in that saliva test, higher cortisol in the morning, and then we're looking for it to kind of like slowly dip off throughout the day. I would say for 70% of the women in particular that happen to come to me, the cortisol is pretty off. It doesn't look like that. Mine doesn't quite look like that either. For years, mine was flat all the time. So like never high, so just real foggy, tired kind of all the time. And then for many years, mine was flipped upside down. So it's the whole night person thing, right? And I tend to work later most of my life during the jobs that I've had too. So I think that has contributed to it. If I'm working till 8 o'clock, then you have to keep that energy up, right? And then you have to kind of come down from that. And so mine a lot of times was super low in the morning. And then as the day would go on, I would get more energy, which depending on your lifestyle is fine, you know, but then at 11 o'clock at night, I wanted to, you know, repaint the kitchen or reorganize the closet or whatever, because I felt like, you know, and then it's nice to feel productive because I always feel like I wasted the morning and I was doing stuff and I was going to work and dropping kids off at school and doing all the things I needed to do. But I feel like my brain was not, you know, was like somewhere else till about noon. And then it was like, oh, now I feel a little better, you know, or whatever. And so, you know, stress in your life, hormones, all that stuff can kind of be affected. So saliva is really the best way to test cortisol. So I can do that if you ever need. You can do blood cortisol. It's not quite as effective, but sometimes in some blood panels that we do, you can see at least what the morning one is, like if you go in for a fasted one. But we're looking for that one to be like kind of decent. Not that I expect that you're going to jump out of bed and be like, yay, here comes the day. But within like 15, 20 minutes of being awake, that you should just kind of feel like at least some sense of energy. I would wake up and then walk around and start doing stuff, and in about a half hour, I felt like I could go to bed again. You know, that's not good. So that's like a low cortisol piece. You don't want that. I feel like I'd sit on the couch and I'd be, you know, I easily feel like I could go to bed again. Like that's not good. That's not the way it should be. So if you're doing that in the morning and then you have tons of energy at night, then that's flipped cortisol. I work with a ton of people that are doing shift work, third shift. That gets really messed up. I'm working with a handful of people right now that are on like night shifts for a period of time and then day shifts for a period of time. That's the worst. Like every 9 to 12 weeks, they're switching. Some factory work, a couple engineers. I think that's the worst. Whereas at least consistently, if you're third shift, you could work on some sort of a rhythm. But our culture is not super conducive to third shift workers either. And especially if kids, for sure not, because then you have to like do other schedule and whatever. But it's hard because that's about how long it takes your body to get used to some sort of a system. And then you just flip it upside down every quarter. And that's awful. I don't know about any of you. I struggled more this fall with daylight savings than before. Usually I'm crabby in spring because I'm not as much of a morning person. So then I have to force my body to get up an hour earlier. So it took me like, and I'm just working out of it. And it's been, what, a couple of weeks now? I couldn't fall asleep. So I already am like not falling, you know, have to talk myself into falling asleep. So then I just suddenly talked myself into falling asleep an hour earlier. Well, that didn't go well. So I was going to bed at the same time internally. And then lo and behold, I'm waking up an hour earlier than I'm supposed to. So then I shaved off an hour like each way. So the last, you know, the first 10 days of daylight savings was rough when I normally do sleep close to 8 hours. All of a sudden 8 became 6 or 7.5 became 5.5. And then that just felt like we got to let it, you know, work out. I kind of wish we didn't do it. I wish it was just the same and we didn't have to have these big adjustments every spring or fall, but that's a whole other thing. So, so that's your circadian rhythm. Light exposure is probably one of the biggest components to that. And I don't mean a lamp or your phone. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is open my like patio window doors, if it's nice, I will open them. If it's cold like today, then I just make sure to open all the blinds. If you have a lot of window coverings in your house, the best thing to do in the morning or the beginning of the day is try to open everything and get as much light as you can. We have a lot of windows in our house. That's usually not an issue, and I actually have 0 window coverings on anything in our house except for I have room darkening shades in my bedroom for obvious reasons I was just talking about, to kind of get everything as dark in there as possible. But you want it to be light in the morning and then dark at night. I prefer when it's dark more like 8 p.m., not this whole 4 p.m. stuff, but because then it, I'm sure all of you, like when it gets dark at like 4ish, you feel like it's 9 all of a sudden. And then our body responds by looking out the window, and your body starts to wind down, because that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to wind down when it gets dark. But I know because of my work schedule, I look and it's 4, and I'm like, I got 4 more hours of people left. Like, this isn't good, And you can turn on lights all you want, but it's not the same as natural light. So light exposure in the beginning of the day is huge. Going outside is even better. Yes, even in the winter. Even, I just, in the winter, I do not walk a ton in the winter. We have a pond in our backyard. I'll do like 1 lap on that, and that only takes 12 minutes, but that's fine. I will walk down and get the mail, not if it's stupid cold, but getting outside in that fresh air sometime, even anytime before noon. It doesn't have to be at 7 a.m. It could be 10, 11. The light and just like that fresh, cold air in particular. So if you can do that in the morning, but to make yourself get outside and just kind of do something, even if it's just, if you live in a subdivision, just walking around the block once, and like go in your pajamas and your boots and your weird looking whatever. That's what I do. Whatever I slept in, I just put a winter coat over that. Pink snowflake pajama pants, walking in our neighborhood. That's why I go behind the pond, that no one sees me but the deer. So,
fashion police.
Yes, yeah, right. I probably scare them off, but get outside and get that light in your retinas. In the world of sort of avoiding the sun, because I know we talk about that a lot, I'm sort of the opposite, but sunglasses, fully blocked sunglasses, unfortunately block some of the light that we need in our retinas to help us wake up. I am not suggesting you look directly at the sun ever, and I'm not suggesting you lay outside and bake for an hour at all. I'm saying get outside for 10 or 15 minutes and let your face and your eyes be exposed to the bright sunlight. It can be particularly bright in the winter when there's a lot of snow too, because it's like reflective, and so sometimes that's nice. Your body is conducive to, and humans in general are conducive to habit and routine. And so anytime you try to change your habits or your routine, your body will probably fight back. Like me trying to get to bed an hour earlier, my body was like, I don't think so. Like, this is not what you usually do. What are you doing? Or if you try to get up earlier or later, or any of that, it just gets messed up. So, but through repetition and habit changes, then you can change some of the physical and mental and emotional cues, and then some of the responses to those cues. So you can learn to develop patterns that you know are better for you. They may not be easier for you now, but it's a short-term discomfort for like a long-term payoff. Let's stop for a second and talk about that, because that is sometimes, I think, what people find difficult. Can you think of a habit that you do now? I can think of a ton. That is short-term uncomfortable, and I'm not talking painful, a small little thing that's uncomfortable to do that you know long-term will pay off. Let me give you a couple examples. The fish oil capsules that I swallow are huge. I hate taking them. They're still sitting in my car today. I haven't taken them yet. But I know long-term, that's a good anti-inflammatory for my health. So it is short-term discomfort of me swallowing 2 of those puppies every day. Hydration is another one that's like uncomfortable for me. It's not painful, but like making myself drink half my body weight in water is very uncomfortable for me every day. I really have to push it. It doesn't naturally come to me. I am not thirsty at all. I am just like trying to chug the water all day, but I know long-term that it's better for lots of things. What was your example? Something short-term discomfort?
I've been having, I don't know what, for whatever, but at 1:25 in the morning I'm up. And so I've gotten in the habit of reading my son's cards.
Oh, Oh, sure.
And that is really a blessing.
So then does that,
Calm you down.
it calms you down? That's good.
Very good.
That's good.
Very, very good.
Can anybody else think of a short term, like a small little thing that you do that makes you uncomfortable, that you do it for health reasons that you know like it's a good idea to do? Yep.
Go walk on my lunch.
Yeah, I was just gonna say walking was another one of mine. And it seems like
It's just gonna happen.
that should be so easy, right? Like, yeah, I try to walk or get in about 10 to 15 miles a week. And so it's just a little bit every day. That's not a lot. Getting going is always hard because I always have something else I could be doing, or, oh, it's a little rainy, or I'm a little hot, or like, you know, whatever, there's something. Yeah, so if you have the same time that you do it every day, I think that's great. I usually, in the summer, go every morning. In the winter and the fall, then it's like, ugh, you know, because that's when it's like chillier in the morning. I have started, I get bored really easily. So I've started walking. I call it walking where I'm at. Just kind of building it into my day the night before. So from 11 to 12, when I'm sitting down, when I'm awake and no one else is, what I'm doing is planning my day for the next day, because that helps me fall asleep too if I have a plan, like ready to roll. And so I do some habit stacking where I know I'm already going to do this one thing. So then I just walk after that. I kind of like just block it off in my day. And it's maybe only like 20 minutes. I take Pilates every Thursday morning. So I just walk in that neighborhood. I'm so sick of walking in my own neighborhood.
Yeah.
We have a nice neighborhood. I'm really sick of if you're only going 20 minutes, there's only so many like ways you can go. And I'm bored looking at the same trees and the same houses and the same dog comes up to me and all the things, right? So I will a lot of times just wherever I'm at that day, walk. Later this afternoon, I'm running up to Target in Madison because I'm getting something that our Janesville one doesn't have. That's where I'm going to walk today. Because I'm just going to plop my car there and walk. I take yoga twice a week between Milton and Janesville here. I walk in that neighborhood too. So then it's just a different place to walk. Linda, when I came and saw you, what was that, a couple weeks ago? When you did that amazing treatment on me? I'll let you do a little thing at the end. You can talk about your business. I sure as hell did not want to walk after that because I was so relaxed. But I'm like, I'm gonna walk right there, like, you know, right off of First Street there, Milton. Like, I'm just gonna walk right there. So that has helped like mix it up for me. It's easier not to do if it's not at the same time, but then sometimes it just kind of mixes it up. So what else? Anybody else? A short-term thing you do that's sort of a habit that you have that's a good habit, that's like mildly uncomfortable, but you know long-term if you keep doing this thing that it's a good idea.
I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable. I am in the habit of practicing yoga.
Sure.
And it's energized.
Sure.
Is the thing.
Yeah, that's good.
And I do a lot of stretching. I feel really good.
Super important to
I
do.
look forward to it.
Yep. You want to be able to touch your toes till the day you die. So I ask you what's uncomfortable because when we talk about changing sleep routines, they are probably going to be uncomfortable. When I meet with people around changing their nutrition and what they're eating, going to eat, it's uncomfortable. It is not painful, and I even hope some of it is fun, but it's probably uncomfortable. When we talk about supplementation, vitamins, maybe drinking some collagen, maybe drinking more water, all of that, like I said, none of it's painful. It's just uncomfortable. Why is it uncomfortable? Because you're not already doing it. And so it's not a habit that you have, and you have to really like build it in, kind of to your day. So I have somebody I'm working with right now who's working on adding 70% less coffee creamer to her coffee. That's uncomfortable because she's used to drinking creamer with a splash of coffee. So now we're trying to like slowly like reverse it. So every week she's sending me a picture of what color her coffee is, from like very beige, And I'm like, you don't have to get black coffee, and I want you to buy a creamer that you love, and I don't even care what it is really, because if you're only adding a tablespoon of something, I don't even care if it's crap, because it's not very much. But when you're drinking a half a cup of it a day, that's good, that's gonna add up, right?
That's a latte.
Yeah. Drinking maybe less caffeine could be uncomfortable for someone. Could be less coffee or getting off energy drinks so think of those things when you leave here as we talk about sleep, but you can think of it in regard to other habits too. What are you doing that's uncomfortable? Or what are other things? Or are you even making yourself uncomfortable? Are you doing anything every day that's uncomfortable? Like if you aren't, that might be connected with why you are not where you want to be kind of health-wise, because you should be doing a ton. I could think of 10 things every day I'm doing that are uncomfortable. Again, not painful. I just don't wanna.
Right.
I don't wanna do them.
Yeah, that's me before, anything before bed. I don't wanna take my makeup off.
Yep, no, that's another, yeah, I don't want to at all,
I
yeah.
don't wanna brush my teeth.
No,
I
me
just
either.
wanna-
Yeah, you just wanna go.
But,
Yep. So one of the things that I started doing is when I know I'm home for the night, I try to like do that. I try to wash my face like right away, because the longer the night goes, like I really don't wanna, And then sometimes I think I did and I forgot. And like my husband will be like, okay, let's go to bed. I'm like, oh, I didn't wash my face. And he's looking at me like, big deal. But I'm like, it takes like 4 minutes. Like, I don't want to. And it's energy and skincare and like all that, guys don't think about that stuff. But, so yeah, sometimes like I would say also building in the things that you don't want to do during your highest point of the day if you have one, like trying to just get it done right away. Last night it took me forever, but I've been like super busy with a lot of clients this fall, like in particular. And I keep my house pretty clean, but I have probably half my closet on my floor as of last night, because I was just like taking stuff off and going to the next place and like not putting away. So I had piles of clothes kind of neatly like in a pile, but like the pile was like growing like a pile of leaves. And every time I look at it, I'm like, God, every night, every day in the middle of work, I say, I'm going to come home and I'm going to put those clothes away. And then I get home and I'm like, it's totally not happening tonight, So then last night I was home a little earlier and I'm like, I'm going to close the door and I'm just gonna, we have all these foster kittens at our house right now. So that is totally like, I'm not focused on anything because they're so fun to play with. So I even locked them out. And it took me like over an hour to put that stuff away, but I did. And then I felt better just knowing like finally I'd done that after like 3 weeks. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say that I try to like stage the house for the next morning.
Yes, I do that at night. Yes,
so, like,
I do
I'm
that.
already like
Yep.
making smoothies for the next day or
Mhm.
making dinner. Okay, I'm gonna dump out the coffee grounds.
Right.
I'm gonna get the coffee grounds.
Make it
water
easy.
ready
Make the
for
morning
coffee.
easy. Yeah, yeah. That's a good way of saying it, like staging. Yeah, I like lay out my clothes and try to get all that ready because I'm not hanging out for 3 hours in the morning before I go. I'm just I want to kind of get up and go where I have to, where I choose to, whatever. So yeah, think of those items of like discomfort. So a consistent, healthy sleep routine will help you develop some of those other habits that maybe you haven't been able to do, because then hopefully your energy is a little bit more aligned. So you just want to basically like support your natural circadian rhythm. Now, obviously there's tons of things that can get in the way of not having a great sleep routine. Travel, that'll do it for me. Like time zones, jet lag, things like that. Even just sleeping in a different, like if I'm camping or sleeping in a hotel room, that throws me off. I just can't sleep as well. Shift work, like I said, stress, untreated mood disorders, anxiety, depression, and then a big one that we all know is the artificial light exposure. So looking at your screen an hour before you go to bed. I have found that TV for a little while before I go to bed is fine for me. Like that is fine for me, but a actual like screen on a phone or definitely a laptop that keeps me awake a little bit more. So maybe probably because I'm like farther away, I know there's something to that, but so manage your light consumption, natural light consumption, any of your light consumption early part of the day if you can, and then try to slowly, again, we're trying to get our body to kind of work down towards the end of the night. And that is not something you want to think about 15 minutes before you go to bed. That's actually something you want to think about 3 hours before you go to bed. You have to be like, okay, back out of it. I want to get to bed at 11. So what am I going to do at 8 to try to slowly, So like I want to get to bed by 12. What am I going to do at 9? That's me personally. That's probably later than most of you. But I'm not even home till 8:30. But once I get home, make dinner, we eat, I clean everything up. And the minute I'm done with that, it's probably 9:30 for me. Then I go through the house and I shut all the lights down. I light a candle. I put on something fleece. I put on my fireplace. I put a cat on my lap. And I might work on something, but like I'm telling my body like it's time to work down. It doesn't mean I don't throw in a load of laundry and get some stuff done, but it's not high intensity stuff. I used to keep my work hours like 9 to 7 and then I would go to the gym after that. I've done that for 25 years, probably 25 years. So I was going to the gym at 7. I actually felt best then because of the circadian thing I was just telling you about. So then I get home around 8:30 still. And then that gave me energy to complete almost like the second shift, like get home and like do all this stuff. However, about 2 or 3 years ago, I think because some of the menopause transition, I was looking at the ceiling, laying awake. That was an uncomfortable habit that I needed to change. It doesn't mean it was bad for me before, but all of a sudden it wasn't working for me, and so I needed to change that. I'm not great in the morning, as I just discussed, so you will not see me lifting weights at the gym at 8 a.m. I take yoga and Pilates in the morning. So now I am splitting my day, seeing clients in the morning, sometimes Zoom, sometimes at the clinic, and then somewhere in that like 12:30 to 2:30 range, I am having a meal, running errands, and going to the gym then. I keep my workouts pretty quick, like 45 minutes. And then I go back, which I call like my second shift, and then I see people from like 2 to 8 or, whatever. So I'm not doing it like early in the morning because my body fights me on that for sure. But the difference between working out at 1 and 7 that's made a big difference for me. I'm trying to like get myself to just work down, just leave when I'm done with my last client, do some notes, and then, drive home in the dark and be done. Not drive home in the dark and then put my AirPods on and some really loud music in a really bright gym and lift weights like that. Like doing that at 7 or 8 is not, for me, has not been a great idea. So manage your life. Large meals before bed, generally not a great idea either. 3 hours though is even fine. So I'm eating dinner probably later than most of you, but even me finishing a meal at 9 or 9:30 is not bad because I still am awake for another few hours past that. Rest and digest. If you're eating a large meal before you go to bed, your digestive system, your whole body has to work to digest that, and that will keep you awake. Your body wants to eat when we're awake, and then not, when you're sleeping during that fasted time. And so those are kind of natural rhythms we want to get ourselves into. So think about what time you want to fall asleep. And I would say cut your food off about 3 hours before that, if you can. These are all just like general suggestions too, because I know people have wacky work schedules and other things. Just do the best you can. And we're shooting for, on any of these habits, consistency, not perfection. Because what happens if you shoot for perfection? You mess up one night and you're like, screw it, I'm not doing this anymore. When if you hit that maybe 80% of the time, you probably make a huge habit change. That would be great. There's all times that we like stay up too late or you're on your phone or whatever. Don't worry about it. Just do something different the next day. Just, do the best you can. Is there anybody here that is eating a meal within like less than 3 hours of going to bed, do you think? A couple of you? Okay, yeah. So it doesn't mean you can't eat it all, but you just don't want to be digesting like a large meal. I tend to split I have 3 meals in a smoothie, or like I'm gonna call it like 4 meals a day. I tend to, calorie-wise, they're all about the same for me. So they're all about 400 and some calories. So none of them are really, it's not like I'm eating my biggest meal at night. They're kind of like pretty even. For me, that helps too. So I'm not having to do a lot of digestive work. Eating triggers an insulin response. And so that's linked to your circadian rhythm. And so you don't want your insulin to spike right before bed because that will keep you awake. So it doesn't mean you need to eat the minute you wake up either. I'm just saying, like, watch that window before you go to bed. Caffeine is an obvious one. Everybody's so different with like caffeine and how they absorb it and what they do. So that was the other reason I stopped working out at the gym later, is because I was saving half of my caffeine intake, which wasn't a lot. I don't do a lot of caffeine, but I was saving like 40 milligrams for like an hour before I got to the gym because I needed to talk myself into doing it. So at like 5 or 6 o'clock, I was having some, which isn't a ton, but still not great, right? If you have a more traditional sleep schedule, really, not much past 2 or 3 is like not a great idea unless you got something going on. I always laugh because my husband and I try to go to like Mexico once every couple of years if we can swing it. And they are up way later there, like at these resorts, and everything starts later. So we're eating dinner. We're eating dinner later, but up about the same time we normally do. But the night starts there and they have all these shows and all this stuff. And so for many years, the last couple times I haven't, because I'm like, I don't know if this is a good idea. But I'm like, they got stuff going on till like 1 or 2 in the morning, and you have this fear of missing out because you're only there 4 nights. So you want to like see all the things. So I was having like a shot of espresso with dinner at like 8. In no planet would I ever do. I would never do that at home, right? But I thought, well, whatever. Like I'm just doing it for 4 nights, and otherwise I'd be super boring to hang out with because they had all this stuff going on, and you're just, it's super hard for me to fall asleep there because they have like the stimulation is like they're doing like these fire shows and like all this stuff at like midnight. So it's like turning your brain on, and then they're like, okay, good night, see you tomorrow. That's why people are like flat out on like hammocks and stuff, like sleep in the middle of the day because they couldn't fall asleep. Caffeine in general, everybody's different. Some people are really sensitive to it, so you just shouldn't have any. Everybody's a little bit different. If you say that it doesn't affect you, I would argue that it does in some way. You just kind of don't know it, or you're so hooked on it. I usually say maximum milligrams per body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, no more than 150 milligrams a day, and you should cut that off at least like 8 hours before you go to bed. That's like a general suggestion. So sometimes when I see people in the office who aren't sleeping well, then I find out on the back end that they're having a rock star and a cold brew and 900, 1,000 milligrams of caffeine. Well, no wonder why you're like whacked out. So yeah, that'd be a lot for you. You'd be like, I was working with one guy who said, Sarah, I can't get my eyebrow to stop twitching. And I had just started his intake. And so we were just like talking through stuff. He's like in good shape, and like there was not a lot of health stuff. And then we got to the like, what are you eating and drinking during the day? And yeah, it was like 700 or 800, and he wasn't a big guy. So I thought, oh, we need to cut this. Like, let's just shoot for cutting this in half. But he was working a day job, a night job, had a toddler. I mean, so he was just like, go, go, go. But at some point, you're going to get burned out and then just fall flat on your face. So that's my general suggestion is no more. Like, that's your cap. Like, take your body weight, no more than that. But some of you, that might be too much. Some of you, that might be okay. That is usually like a good max for me personally. The only time I really notice if it's too much is if I go over that and I haven't had food in my stomach, then I can start to feel like a little jittery, not in a good way. So, yeah. The half-life of caffeine, though, is at least 6 or 8 hours, which means it takes that long to like work out of your body. And for some people, if you don't metabolize caffeine very quickly, it could take 20 hours. So you even having caffeine in the morning might be too much and still be keeping you up, because some people will say like, well, no, I just have some in the morning. Well, let's try not doing that, because maybe that is enough to keep you up. Depends on how you're doing it. Wherever you sleep, assuming it's a bedroom, make that a cool place to be. Make that like inviting. Get the sheets that you like and a pillowcase that you look forward to putting your head on. Mine's full of cat hair. I'm always like changing mine because I got cats everywhere right now. And so that's not inviting for me. Make the blanket that you like or fleece. Make sure it's relaxing. Don't have a pile of clothes in your room. I have really neutral colors in my bedroom too, because I don't want anything like stimulating, like beige and ivory and black but it's very like just calming. Some people say making their bed in the morning is a good habit that they have, because then when they go to like get into bed, it's part of that ritual. So that's like another good thing. Whether it's candles, cold, dark, and quiet. That's what you want your bedroom to be. Not saying you can't use a fan or a white noise machine. Those are all great too. But cold, dark, and quiet. So if you remember those 3 things as far as like bed. But yeah, make it cool but comfortable in there. Usually 60 to 68 is kind of the range that is good for most people for sleeping. I think I'm probably like 68 in the summer, and then I try to get it as cool as we can kind of in the winter. I even will open our like patio door if I'm watching TV towards the end, just to try to get it as cool as possible, because I know my house is newer, and so the cool thing about that is I don't have to use the heater, the air conditioning very often, and it maintains. But if I turn my heat off in the winter, even at 8 p.m., it does not, it kind of like holds really well, which is awesome, but not when I'm trying to sleep. And so I don't want it to hold at 73, when I'm trying to sleep. So develop a personal relaxation plan. So I've talked about some of those things, but maybe it's reading a book or reading cards, like you said. Maybe it's meditation, music. But you have to really like tell your brain, like, if you are not communicating to your brain it's time to go to bed, your brain will not do that. And so brain and body are, connected for sure. So when I see people who have diagnosed or undiagnosed anxiety, that is usually connected with either inability to fall asleep in the first place. That's one of the questions on my intake packet, like your mind wanders, it keeps you awake. And or they fall asleep fine, and then at about 2 or 3 in the morning, they wake up and can't get back to sleep. That's usually anxiety. Something's kind of going on in your mind. Maybe you're not aware of it. That can be higher cortisol. It can be a huge drop in estrogen postmenopausal. So low estrogen makes it really hard to sleep a lot of times. And that can be, and I'm not even saying the hot flashes and all that. I mean, that totally contributes to not being able to sleep, but lower estrogen, and progesterone actually too, because progesterone's a calming hormone. And so if you are over the age of 45, all of that stuff is probably starting to happen. And so that, messes with your body too. So, yeah.
I think that's a big reason because a lot of the women in my age group that I talk with,
Nobody sleeps, right?
all having the same
Yep.
problem.
Yep.
And my doctor doesn't seem to realize that.
Right. I hear that often too. Yeah. Not to get into hormone replacement today, but bioidentical hormone replacement, I know a handful of you in here just working with you do it. I do it. That's great for sleep. A lot of doctors aren't up on that. You got to go kind of in the outskirts. We have functional medicine practitioners right in our area who can script that and do that stuff. Oral progesterone is amazing for sleep. I take 100 milligrams because my progesterone is crashed. And so that helps me. Yeah, you can do melatonin. You can do, and that's when all this stuff can be helpful.
Melatonin doesn't work.
And melatonin can do the opposite for some people, but you have to find what, a combo. And I have a ton of supplement ideas, but again, I like to get to the root cause of why aren't you sleeping first, because then we're not forcing your body to sleep. We're just correcting something that's off balance, and that's all we want to do. So my progesterone's low, so I take a little extra progesterone to balance it with my estrogen, then I fall asleep fine. Problem solved. Boom, melatonin didn't work for me either. If your cortisol is high, again, we test that on a saliva test. A cortisol manager, which is a combination, there's ashwagandha and some other calming herbs in there, will help lower your cortisol so your body can let go, release, and fall asleep. If you have unmanaged anxiety, then maybe it's therapy, maybe it's medication, maybe it's something else, maybe it's GABA to be able to reduce your anxious feelings. You might not even be in touch with the fact that you have, but that can be a piece of why you don't fall asleep or stay asleep. So those are all kind of a piece. If you have some chronic pain, not even crazy chronic pain, but just a little bit of it. I threw out my back last Wednesday, and that was enough to impact my sleep. I wasn't dying, but every time I switched around in bed, I was ooh, and then that woke me up, and then I had to go to sleep all over again, headaches, all that type of stuff. So, so there's, lots of things that can kind of get away in that. For anybody who has pets, I feel like pets get in the way of that too. So if you sleep with your cat or your dog, holy crap, I'm seems like a good idea to have them in at the time, and then at 3 a.m. I'm why did I do that again?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Am I a light sleeper? Because I feel like I can hear if somebody
I'm light too.
needs to get up.
Same.
In the middle of the
Yeah.
night, I'm just
Yeah. That's females, we're we're just bred that way, because if you're having babies, then you have to be awake for that. Somebody's got to wake up for that, because the guy's usually So there is something to that, and it's good. It's okay. But yeah, you hear when somebody wakes up. Yeah, I know. I can hear our cat in the kitchen waking up. And it's far away. Why can I hear that? I want to hear that. So yeah.
I have a problem with a neighbor.
Oh,
And
I didn't think about that. Neighbors.
Well, he's so loud, and he puts a crazy music on, so it vibrates the house. And even the lady across the street can hear it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
That is loud.
One
noise
time-
ordinance on top.
Yeah.
I fought
I'll have to
it
get
for
it
4
serious.
hours one night, and I finally called over there to his wife, and I
Yeah.
said, please, I feel very ill. I can't sleep. It vibrates the house and everything, and you won't turn it down.
So the noise ordinance, at least in Janesville, I think is 10 p.m., isn't it? 10 to 8?
Well, he went from all night till about 4 in the morning. And the
Yeah.
whole house vibrates. You
Yeah.
can't shut a door.
Yeah.
Or put a razor
Yeah, that's
on
bad.
your nose and you'll
Yeah, you
like
gotta call like non-emergency for that, like over and over again, because then they'll
Mhm.
figure that out, so, yeah. Okay, let's run through kind of like a final, like a checklist of things. Some I've talked about, some not, but here's my, like my top, I think I did 15. Yeah. Okay, keep a regular schedule, number one. I know some of you can't, if you're nurses, if you're working overnights. But again, maybe you can't do all 15 of these things, but out of this list, let's think of 3 that you think you can handle. So keep a regular schedule. That means on the weekends and the weekdays, getting up about the same time. I talk with a lot of teenagers. My son does this too. In fact, I don't know, at like, I've been gone all day, but 11 I stopped home to grab something, and I don't know where he was. Like, I was like, is he alive? Like, is he awake? Did he eat breakfast? Like, it's almost noon. So getting up at 6 a.m. during the week and then sleeping till 10 on the weekends is not a good idea. So, but within an hour is fine. So I'm usually like within an hour. I'm usually like 7 something during the week, and Saturdays too. But Sunday I'm like, I don't set an alarm, but I'm naturally up by like 8, so it's not that big a deal. Same with like going to bed at night. I go to bed at almost about the same time, like every night. Okay, number 2, caffeine we talked about, but also alcohol. If you're drinking alcohol, specifically within 6 hours of bed, that will mess with your sleep. I think initially we think, oh, I'm gonna have a glass of wine or a shot of bourbon, that'll help me fall asleep. It will, but your quality of sleep will not be as good, so you're tossing and turning.
Yeah, and you wake up.
And you wake up, yes, and you wake up. So if it doesn't bother you, go for it. I'm not saying not to drink, but I'm just saying explore that as a possibility. You recently said that you like red wine was bad, because
Yes.
me too. Like I was having histamine reactions too, but then also I was like, meh, like up all night, which it's a depressant. I'm like, why am I not sleeping? And brave fought the next day. So just the thing that you don't want to do is probably the thing that you need to do. So like, if you're like, oh, I love a glass of red wine. Yes, you do, but, so then it's sometimes like finding a substitute, just like I love a whole bunch of cold brew, but like, like you gotta be able to figure that out. But a lot of times the thing that you don't want to do that we're avoiding, or when I talk with people and I do intake, I'll be like, well, have you thought about alcohol? It's not that, It's not that, because you don't want to, So in particular, I work with women who are drinking wine like every night, and not a ton. 2 glasses of wine. Not 2 5-ounces though, like 2 12-ounces, right? So that's really like 4 or 5 glasses of wine. But if you do that 7 days a week, all of a sudden that's 35. I think that's impacting something, Yeah. But we normalize like a cocktail, or and again, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but that can really mess with your sleep. So that's number 2, alcohol and caffeine. Number 3, not eating too much before you go to bed, eating like just your regular sized meals spread out. Number 4, brain dump. So that's what you were talking about, kind of like doing stuff, setting up your next day. So I do that for sure. I, for a while in our old house, had a dry erase board outside my shower, because in the shower is when I get my best ideas. That's how I built my business, was in the shower of my house from 10 years ago. Because I would have an idea in there and I'd be like, bleh! And you could never, I feel like I'm going to write that down when I get out, and then you don't, because it went somewhere else when you left. And so I would like reach around with the dry erase marker and write it down. If I get up in the middle of the night and I think of something randomly, I have a little notebook by my bed, again, so I can dump it out and be like, I don't have to worry about this. I'll take care of this tomorrow. It's out. When I think of something in the middle of the day, I have a note section that I email myself, or I write it down, because then I can let it go and move on. So when you think of something, have a place that you put that stuff, or try to dump your brain or plan the next day ahead of time, because that is a lot of times what keeps people awake, is that they're like ruminating on, I'm going to do this tomorrow, and I got to do this thing, and like whatever. Was somebody going to say something? Turn off electronics. We already said that. The screens in particular. I don't mean like music. That's number 5. 6. You were talking about stretching in the morning, or in general, but like stretching, reading, de-stressing. Okay, this will be a fun video. Let's see if this will get me on. Legs up the wall. Have you guys done this? Before you go to bed?
I love that.
Right here. For a minute. Couple minutes. If you want more of a hamstring stretch, you can come further in. But really, and it could be way more cozy than this floor, but in the middle of, and before you go to bed, putting your legs up and just getting that blood flow down, that can help too. Any kind of like gentle stretching, maybe not stimulating stretching or exercise, but yoga poses, reading, meditation. Go to bed before midnight. Linda, that's you and me.
I used to before the time changed.
I know,
Till 1
it's
o'clock in the
awful.
morning.
I know. I'm the
Still
same.
get up at
I should have
7.
just texted you. Like, are you awake? I am.
What's up?
It's funny, if I want to text something to Linda, I really don't worry about, I like generally would never text clients past like 9 or 10, but you I would, because I know that you're up. And then people would be like, now respond. Oh, I'd expect you to respond. Yeah, I'm awake. Midnight is about the cutoff of where things tend to go to awry with your circadian rhythm after midnight, which, that's reasonable. I feel like that's most people I think are going to bed before midnight, but like that's a good, but it's when you start like getting into the AM basically when you should be sleeping is when the issue is. So I'm not telling you have to be up at 5 in the morning either. Past about 9 is when it starts messing with your circadian rhythm in the morning. So you really got some like flexibility there, but so just think about that too, because you go to bed at a different time. And if you're going to try to go to bed at a different time, so every year I say I'm going to do this. I know when daylight savings is coming, I should just start backing it up like the week before. And I did a couple days this, but then I didn't. And then here we are again, we get tired. So, okay, back out of the time you want to go to bed. So let's like start thinking about some of the things that I've said and back into that. So I gave you the example of you want to be sleeping by 11. At 8, what are you going to do from 8 to 11? Make a list of things you can do to kind of like, so these are the de-stimulating things to help your body relax, your house, the light, all the things. I would tell you the same thing in the morning then, bring more stimulating activities to your morning. So that's why I take a walk outside in the cold, even if it's cold. That's why, even though I don't want to lift weights in the morning, I do yoga and Pilates because I'm moving around and doing something. It's not the high intensity that I can't handle it, but it's a little something. So yeah, music in the morning.
I can't read at night because it's stimulating. I'm like,
It's stimulating for you. Yes, that's my problem
so I
too.
read right away in the morning.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, people say read before you go to bed, and that's always one of the suggestions. People are like, oh, I read, and by page 2, I'm out. Nope, I am highlighting, taking notes, and like my brain turns on because I want to absorb the information.
Get
So
those notebooks out.
yeah, get the notebooks out. Yeah. So yeah, if you know that about yourself, then yeah, don't do it. What you watch before to go to bed makes a difference too. So like I don't really watch a lot of TV, but my husband and I try to watch something for 45 minutes, like maybe 5 nights a week. Otherwise we go to bed at a little bit different times. Have anybody seen The Handmaid's Tale? You ever seen that?
What is it?
Yeah, don't watch that before you go to bed.
No.
And it was great, and we watched the whole thing. But I'm like, so then we got into the habit where we had to watch that and then part of a Friends episode after, because I needed to, it's just disturbing. So like, and good, but it was like, I wanted to keep watching it, but like, that's not but somehow watching that at 8 in the morning seems not right either. Like, it just seemed not, I don't know when you watch that, there's really not a good time. And it was very well done, but like, try to watch something that's not too disturbing because then
I
that's
like to watch on PBS. Steve's or what gets a travel show, half an hour.
Oh,
He's
that's
on
good.
9 and 10,
Yeah.
30. It's got a soft voice.
Yep.
It's very relaxing.
Mm-hmm. Some of those like home renovation shows can be okay for that, unless they're really good, because then I'm writing down ideas like you. But like something like that. Yeah. Cooking shows sometimes used to put me to sleep because I think there's something about like the white noise of the, So if you're gonna watch something, just make sure that it's not anything that keeps you awake. So number 8 is basically back out of the time that you want to go to bed and try to reduce your stimuli. And 3 hours might seem like a lot, but I'm not saying anything has to be crazy, but I'm just saying between that 3-hour time, just think of what you could do to set yourself up for restful sleep. Number 9, exercise regularly. This may sound like obvious, but a lot of people are not really getting a lot of movement during the day. Trying to front load your movement in the first 8 hours of the day. So I was just talking about how I moved my workout. So if I'm up at 7:30, I want to get most of my movement done by 3:30. And so I would say I get 80% of my movement done by 3:30. If that's my Pilates or yogas in the morning, or if I don't take a class, I stretch. I walk almost always before that time. A couple times I've walked downtown in the summer at night. It's been very relaxing in a different way, but And then I'm always done working out pretty much by 2 or 2:30. So get most of your movement done in the first 8 hours of the day. Sometimes I meet with people who say, I'm tired during the day and I'm nodding off. And then when I go to bed, I'm not tired. And sometimes my response is, you are not doing anything during the day to make you tired. If I sat on the couch all day, I'd fall asleep too. Like I totally would fall asleep because you have created an environment that's sleepy and you are not moving your body or getting things done. So get a chunk of activity or as much as you are physically able to in the first 8 hours of the day to make yourself kind of be tired towards the end of the day. So you may not be moving enough to make yourself tired. So again, we're trying to rewire our body and flip that upside down and do activity in the beginning part of the day. If you can even split your day into the first 8 hours and the second 8 hours, do that. More in the beginning, less on the back end. So number 10, sometimes warm bath or shower. For me, shower wakes me up, so can't do that. And I do like to shower at night, but I can't do it right before I go to bed. Plus the wet hair thing or something that keeps me awake, and then it looks really funny in the morning, so I don't want to do that either. But sometimes hot bath or shower for people. So experiment with that, like what you like. Sometimes that's helpful. Number 11, room dark. We said that. Cold, dark, quiet. So the only curtains I have in my house are my room darkening shades, but they are definitely dark. So it is pitch black in my room. Some people do these sleep mask things. Those bother the crap out of me because I don't want something sitting on my face. So generally. Now, Linda, when you put it on me when you did what is it called? Flow press. So I'm gonna have to talk about that then. That I didn't notice at all. And then sometimes, somehow I conked out. But in general, I don't like stuff on my face. I don't like sunglasses. I don't like hats. So the thing on my face is enough to distract me. But some people do that. Number 12, we already talked about. Have a stress-free, clutter-free bedroom. If you have stacks of mail in there, boxes, piles of clothes, like I did, my bedroom's the last place I clean. I just don't. And I consider that not an unhealthy habit because that's actually an example of me letting go and just letting it be messy. And I feel like that's not a bad thing. And I don't really worry about it up until the point where I don't have any clothes up on hangers and I'm like, I gotta put this away. But it's just the last place I get to and I don't, worry about it. But yeah, if you have stacks of mail, boxes, clothes all over. If you're my daughter, you have 8 cups from different beverages over the last 24 hours. And if you have kitties and you have 8 cups, they're just gonna knock them all over, and then you have to clean all that up. So, clutter-free bedroom where you sleep, 60 to 68 degrees. That's number 13. White noise is totally an option. I'll tell you a funny story about that. So I'm a licensed therapist. I've been a therapist for years. My old office, which was in First Lutheran Church on the east side, I had a small little office, and I had drywall between my office and the next person's. But for HIPAA and confidentiality, I could almost pretty much make out the conversation next door. And so I'm just another therapist, it's not a big deal, but I really didn't want to hear all that. It was distracting. So I got a white noise machine. So when I saw clients, I could use white noise. And then we kept it between our 2 offices. It was just kind of always on. That was always my trigger also to know not to have a loud meeting because she was seeing someone. So that's fabulous. Fast forward to now, I don't really use a white noise machine, but my husband started snoring quite a few years ago, but it really got bad the last 5 years ago. So I brought my white noise machine into bed. And so the minute we turn off the lights and I go to bed, I turn the white noise machine on. Recently, we switched some offices around the doctor's office, and there was way more activity in the room next to me than there needed to be. And so I turned the white noise machine on. Guess what happened? I got really sleepy because I have conditioned my body to use the white noise machine to go to bed now. So now I can't use it during the day. It doesn't work for me. But the fan, an actual white noise machine, they're $30. They're amazing. I don't not travel with mine anymore. There's an app on the iPhone that's called, I think it's just white noise, or there's one that's called fan, low, medium, high, and it just sounds like a fan. So a couple times when we've traveled, I pretty much bring it wherever we go because it really is helpful, especially in hotels or places where I'm not used to sleeping. But if I forget it, there is something like on the, like an iPhone app, it's free, that you can use that sounds like a white noise machine, so, yeah.
So a fan is considered white noise?
Yep, absolutely, yep,
Ceiling fan too?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Unless it clicks incessantly, like that would drive me nuts, but like something, yeah. So I have a ceiling fan and a white noise machine, because the air blowing on me puts me to sleep too. Not too much that it like dries me out, but just a little bit of air on me, like a cool breeze. In fact, an oscillating fan is actually the best for me. But it just depends on kind of what you want sitting in your room. So back to the cat thing, I couldn't have oscillating fan because they were knocking it over. So that's why I just switched to the noise machine. You can't get a ceiling fan. They want to, but they can't. Can't get up there. So white noise is number 14. So that could be a humidifier or like a HEPA filter too, like any of that. In fact, if you ever stay in a hotel, when we go to a hotel, I put the automatic, like the fan on constant, because if it's kicking on and off throughout the night, like the heat or the air, that's enough to like light sleeper. That's enough to like wake me up and go back down. And so I want something that's just that like constant noise. Some people do like static on a radio, like you could do that too. Last one is when we talked about get outside in the sunlight and fresh air during the day or in the first 8 hours of the day. I'm going to tell you the first 4 hours a day is probably the best. So if you work a night shift, try to get lots of bright light and movement when you would normally be awake. So I know that gets messed up for people, but yeah. So there's other clinical reasons for inability to sleep. I didn't get into a ton of those, but I just kind of listed a couple. High cortisol, untreated anxiety, low progesterone or estrogen. Low vitamin D will do it too. I talk about vitamin D somehow at every presentation, but it's so important for everything. And so getting your vitamin D tested, making sure it's between about 70 and 100. This is the critical time to where if you usually take no dose of vitamin D during the summer or a lower dose, this right now, right at daylight savings, is about the time where you should be upping your dose to whatever you have found has worked for you. Most people I work with are doing 5,000 during the summer months and then 10,000 during the winter. If they hold their vitamin D well or absorb it well, they're not doing anything during the summer, and then they do 5,000 during the winter. So that's like a typical dose. But D3 with K2, which do you have that here? Is it out here? Okay, we have it here though, so you can look for that.
5,000 when and 10,000?
Well, test first, like don't just, I mean, it's pretty hard. Vitamin D toxicity is like almost unheard of, but like get a lab.
I actually asked for one this last time.
Okay.
I went for my wellness
So
check.
ask for one. Here's a general, not to give you like specific advice, but like generally anybody under 40 or 40 something, I'll do 10,000 I use like a day in the morning. It's usually just 2 little, tablets. And vitamin D is cheap. It's like $15. Like 50 or above, that's decent. Then I might do like 5,000. If you're sitting in that 70 to 100 and you're not supplementing, then leave it alone.